Good morning. We are continuing in our series on the one another passages. And this morning we are in 1 Peter 5 and verse 5, where Peter instructs us to clothe yourselves, all of you, with humility towards one another, for God opposes the proud, but gives grace to the humble. What is humility? One of the best definitions of humility that I can think of is actually found in Romans 12 and verse 3, where Paul says, "For by the grace given to me, I say to everyone among you, not to think of himself more highly than he ought to think, but to think with sober judgment, each according to the measure of faith that God has assigned." That's humility, to think of yourself with sober judgment. There are two extremes to avoid where humility is concerned. One is to think of yourself more highly than you ought to think. And in the context of Romans 12, that has to do with the way you view your spiritual gifts. You think that your gifts are the most important in the life of the church, or that you are better gifted than somebody else in the life of the church. And so it is to you that all the opportunities must be given. That is not humility, that is pride. The other extreme is to think that your gifts are unimportant in the life of the church, that nobody needs them. And so it is fine if you never use them, if you refuse every opportunity to serve because you always feel that others can do a better job. Well, that's not humility either. Instead, humility is thinking of yourself with sober judgment according to the measure of faith that God has assigned. And by that, Paul means according to the gifts that God has given to you. In other words, it is looking at yourself and your gifts the way God looks at you and your gifts. That's humility. Well, how does God look at you and your gifts? Well, He does not consider you to be the most important person in your church. The church will exist long after you die. He is able to sustain it without you. But He also does not think that you are useless. And so He has given to you gifts that the rest of the body needs in order to function properly. You are not the greatest, but you are also not unimportant. And so where there is clearly a need, you will serve because your gifts are useful. But where others are already occupying a particular role, you will not bulldoze your way through, because as useful as your gifts are, the Lord is able to sustain His church fine without them. It's the individual who thinks like this who is truly humble in the scriptural sense, the one who thinks of himself or herself with sober judgment. It's this kind of humility that Peter is saying we should clothe ourselves with back in our text. The reason why we should clothe ourselves with humility is because God opposes the proud. God takes this humility thing personally. An expression of pride towards my brother is actually an expression of pride towards God. And this becomes clearer when you notice that in the immediately preceding sentence, Peter instructs us to be subject to authorities, and in particular to the authorities of the elders. What's the connection between submission and humility? Well, at the heart of a lack of submission to authority is really pride. The reason God takes unsubmissiveness personal is because there is something in you that believes that you can do a better job than the person who is occupying that particular position. That's really what you are saying when you are being insubordinate to authority. You are saying to God, you made a mistake in choosing this person to be in authority. You should have chosen me because I would have done a better job. But secondly, it's also pride because you believe that unless you are in control of a particular thing, it will not turn out well at all. And so you are unwilling to follow this person's leadership. Well, God's response towards the proud in local churches is to oppose them. And you need to appreciate that in failing to clothe yourself with humility, you are actually setting yourself up against God. God takes it upon Himself to deal with you. This is not a very nice situation to be in. to have God Himself in opposition towards you. Learn from Christ to be humble and plead with Him to cultivate in your heart true humility. Clothe yourselves, all of you, with humility towards one another. Amen.